99.9 Punk World Radio FM. You guys already know what time it is. And right here, we are joined by a legendary Canadian band. These guys have been doing their thing since 1994. They went on a little hiatus, but they came back in 2017. We got Downway right here, live on the radio station airwaves. Guys, how are you doing tonight?
Happy Monday.
Excellent.
I got to say, it's definitely a phenomenal Monday. Normally, I hate Mondays, but I gotta love the Mondays where I get to interview Canadian legends like yourselves. So thank you so much, guys, for a bit of your time here this Monday night.
No problem. Thank you.
But I know you're busy individuals, so of course I'm not going to take you away from your evening too long. But I got to take you back almost 31 years ago to 1994, where you guys actually put together a 4-track, single-sided, self-titled EP that was recorded in Jeff's basement, from what I read on Discogs. I was wondering if you can tell us, going back 30 plus years, can you tell us a bit more about this very first project? And of course, is it actually out there to be streamed or purchased for the new generation of punk fans to enjoy?
Wow. Geez, what can I say about it? So 94, all of us had just graduated high school. I played in a high school band with Dave Holmes, who's the bass player and other singer in Downway, called Simon's Pet Iguana. Isaac and Ryan played in a band called Society's Criminals. And in that summer, we decided to start this new band, which, basically didn't have a name at the time. And our first basically 4 or 5 songs that we wrote, we took 4 of them, went to Jeff Burns' studio in his basement, recorded it, and put it out in tape format. And then did our first trip to like Vancouver and Edmonton and all that stuff before we had our first CD out. I do not own a copy of it. I haven't even heard those songs. I know we re-recorded 2 of them for our first record, Alk Anonymous and Captain Gino. But there was 2 other songs on there. One I remember really liking too is called Living on Barley. And no, I've not been successful in finding it. Mind you, I haven't looked as hard as I probably could. But I'd love it if someone had a copy and threw it online or something like that, because you can kind of tell even where down we started that kind of, I don't know, whatever version of punk rock that we played, we still kind of play. It still sounds like Downway as far as I remember.
And also, you can't even go wrong with cassettes, man. I know the new generation of individuals that are like listening, they're probably like, what the hell is a cassette? But we're not going to get into that if you just Google it. But cassettes, honestly, were the best. I loved the quality of cassette. I know they're a little bit lower, obviously, than CD, but I just love the sound of a cassette, man. I found like the more mono vibe to it. I loved it.
Well, and they're versatile too, right? I mean, you could buy like TDK 1s or 2s, but the better ones were 2s, right? The chrome ones, and everyone pretty much had a double cassette player by a certain age. I can tell I'm a lot older than you are. But if your buddy had a new record new CD or band that he was into, you like bring it over, and you had it in 45 minutes too. Like you just dubbed it. Obviously CDs went that same direction as well with a better sound quality. But yeah, there's something certainly punk rock about vinyl, but I would say cassette is near that category as well.
Yeah, probably the easiest thing to steal too. From the record store.
Oh, good point. Yeah, it's easy.
And also, if people pissed you off too, you can actually tape over the corners and tape over their music just to be an asshole. I used to do that.
Yeah. Remember, you could put a piece of tape on the top of any tape.
Yeah.
And turn it into basically a blank cassette and then record over it. So yeah, some poor soul would think that they're throwing in like, I don't know, Barbra Streisand and it's Downway.
Yeah.
Sorry for that, whoever that might have happened to.
You know what? At the end of the day, I mean, at least they're getting real music. I mean, at the end of the day, nothing wrong. Nothing against Barbara, but I don't know, Downway or Barbara. I got to go with Downway. So at least if they're getting a Barbra Streisand tape that has Downway on, at least they're getting some real music.
Yeah, man, we're not trying to get into a beat with Barbara, so that wasn't our intent. Yeah, she may or may not be watching, but that was just a joke. Yeah.
And I will say, for legal purposes, that was definitely a joke as well. So please do not sue us.
We're not lawyered up.
No Barbara tapes were harmed or destroyed in the making of this interview. So don't worry.
Thanks for clarifying.
But also in the mid 1990s, you guys actually inked a deal with Hourglass Records. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about your first record deal. And of course, how did you guys ultimately get discovered by Steve of Belvedere's label, Hourglass, back in the 90s?
Okay, so Belvedere hadn't even started. And I was at a pub downtown Calgary called Brewster's, which there's locations all over, at least Western Canada. I don't think out in your neck of the woods. And a guy that was going to college with Steve Rawls knew that I was in this kind of, at that time, like new punk rock band that was starting to play shows quite a bit in Calgary. And he's like, hey, can I think he was like, do you have a tape I can give to my buddy? He wants to start a record label as part of his like school curriculum. Like you had to start your own business. And Steve, obviously, you know, being really interested in punk rock and the same kind of 90s punk rock sound that you know, we were like making, he gave Steve that demo that you mentioned, that 94 one. And Steve called me because back then you just put your parents' phone number on your tape.
Yeah.
And you see, we called and asked to talk to me, and my mom probably said, hey, some guy's on the phone for you. And they went and met Steve at Bonavista Mall, which is ironically, my parents still live there, and I still frequent it and go to Brewster's. And I went and met him, and we had a bit of a BS about what he wanted to do as far as starting a record label. And I think he just came and watched us jam a couple times and was like, hey, do you guys have like 12 songs that you guys can put on a CD? And he's like, I want to like put something out. So that would have been probably summer 95. And then we recorded that in the fall, and it came out before Christmas. And then we just decided that I guess we have to be like a real band and like support this and start touring and stuff. And that's what we did. But that was us getting discovered by Steve Rawls or getting signed to a record deal. It was really just Steve wanting someone to record a record and support it. And we were willing to do it. So we got to be his first band on his label.
And it's kind of cool as well. You guys had the opportunity to work with Steve before he even actually was a part of Belvedere and started it up. You were literally the very beginning of his like punk rock career as well.
100%. I remember when he started jamming with, back then they were a 3-piece with Dan and Tim, or Dan, I forget who their bass player was, Brock. I'm messing this up because obviously there was a few different lineup changes in its infancy, but I remember watching them practice in Steve's basement, writing songs, I think before they were even called Belvedere. And then I'm not sure if it seems like you've done some pretty good research. He put out a compilation of Calgary bands called Milk the Cow.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of a spin on something called Cowtown in Calgary. And he put 4 bands on there. And I think he pretty much had to name his band so that he could put his band's 4 songs on there as well. And that's when he came up with Belvedere. I could be a bit off, but I think my timeline's pretty accurate. And then our 2 bands were like pretty inseparable, playing shows around, at least Alberta, BC, Saskatchewan. We played so many shows together. And then ironically, it started with them opening for us and quickly changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. We became their opening. But that's totally fine with me. They deserve it.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to say, I actually saw Belvedere for the first time actually in Ottawa this past year. Well, actually last year, I should say, because it's 2025 now. And they were playing with Authority Zero and absolutely killed it, man. I was trying to see them for years, but every time they would come in my area, I'd either have to work or something like that. But either way, they absolutely tore the roof off the joint.
Yeah, they're a tight band, dude. And they play so many flipping shows. Like they are, they're like a professional touring band. So I mean, these guys are playing upwards of over probably 100 shows a year, give or take. But
Easy.
We did a string of shows on that Authority Zero tour as well. Belvedere was not on those. We were playing that with the Core from Vancouver.
One of our favorite Canadian bands, by the way.
Yeah, but Belvedere is definitely one of those bands. I wouldn't really want to play after them.
I will say Authority Zero definitely killed it, but I will say Belvedere was actually my favorite act of that night. I think it was just because I wanted to see them for so long. But don't I'm not taking nothing away from Authority Zero. They absolutely killed it as well.
Me neither. I love that band and I love those dudes. But I have the utmost respect for Belvedere, and you know, in my opinion, sitting with our drummer, I think Casey Lewis is one of the best punk drummers in the punk rock industry.
I would agree.
So I like every part of that band, but I usually find myself like, I've been watching the drummer for 3 songs straight. You know what I mean? So anyways, they're fun to watch, and they take their craft pretty seriously.
Yeah.
And speaking of shows and performing, you guys actually had the opportunity to perform on the Vans Warped Tour not once but 3 separate times within your band's career, 99, 2000, and 2002. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about being a part of that festival, and of course, what are your most fondest memories as well? Because I know Warped Tour can get pretty crazy sometimes.
Yeah, the first year we played, we only played 1 show. We got asked to play in 99 or 2000. I remember it was just like Eminem played it, Body Count, Blink-182. So I remember we've had to play during, it was like the only band I absolutely wanted to see was Suicidal Tendencies, because I grew up listening to them, and we played during them. It was almost like during, in between our songs, I would almost have like a moment of silence so I could sort of hear them playing. I was like, okay, next song. And then we played the 2001 and 2002 Warped Tours, where we would do like a week or so, or a week or 2 of shows. Like you'd be in Canada, the States, different parts of the States. As far as favorite memory, I think my favorite show we ever played was I think it was 2001 in Montreal, where you know, we usually play on what was called the Volcom stage. But it was like one of those times where it's pretty hectic in between shows, in between bands playing, where, you know, you set up, they tear down your story, you're sitting up, and you know, your back's usually kind of to the crowd as you're getting all your gear set up and getting your guitar going, blah, blah, blah. And it was one of those times where I kind of turned around and realized, you know, there's a couple thousand people packed against our stage. And from the first note, like, knew every word. So I was like, and you know, we're still 45 hours from home. And so it was just kind of a cool, like, we belong here moment. So that's my personal favorite memory of being on that tour. But there's tons of good ones, but that's the one that stands out the most for me. And Glendon, unfortunately, was not their band at that time, right? I wouldn't be doing so much talking.
No.
But I will say as well, I interviewed Tony Lovato of Mest, and I remember he mentioned that Warped Tour had just a smell of piss. Like,
oh yeah. Well, it smells like, if you're from Calgary, you know the smell because it's called Stampede. But yeah, it smells like 10 days through summer called Stampede, where you walk into a beer tent, all you smell is piss and beer and puke. Yeah.
And also as well, going into like the second generation of Downway, I do know in 2003 you guys ultimately split up and went your separate ways. And then 14 years later in 2017, you guys actually came back together, re-emerging within the punk rock community. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about why you guys split up, and of course, you know, what brought you guys back together 14 years later in 2017.
Well, I'll answer the first part of the question, because then you can actually answer the second part. Honestly, it wasn't animosity. It wasn't our band not getting along. Our last record that we did, it was a split with Belvedere. Isaac and Ryan had exited the band, and Mac Barber and Steve Jevney were in our band. And we did we toured for about a year with them and put out a 5-song. We had 5 songs out, and Belvedere had 5 songs split called Hometown Advantage. And I really liked those songs, but you know, I think Holmes had gotten married or was about to get married. I just remember it was kind of like, it was time for us to, I mean, when you're in your early 20s and you're playing in a band and there's thousands and thousands of people that can test this, you lose your job a lot. You jump around from jobs because most jobs don't want you going away for 6 weeks, 3 times a year. And that was definitely happening to all of us. You know, and Holmes was a professional. He's a physiotherapist to this day, but I mean, he was jumping around from different hospitals and clinics to be able to keep playing in this band. And we just had one shitty ass tour. We were with Death by Stereo, and we love those guys and we toured with them lots, but like our RV broke down like every other day. And I think we just kind of got back and said, not definitively, like, let's break up. It's like, I could use a break. Like, let's just take some time. And that time turned into 14 years. But then I became really good friends with Lyndon in that 14 years. And when it started, and he knew the band. And when it was time for us to maybe do something, that's when Lyndon came into the picture. And you can kind of explain that.
And here we are today. Downway play back in the day, before I ever met the guys, with another local band called DeVille. I was always a huge fan. Isaac, the original drummer, was like a big influence on my drumming. I used to listen to Downway as Downway Does and Cackknacker and try to play along. And yeah, I became friends with Dave over the years and kept saying, hey, if you ever get the band back together, I can play the drums. And he said, never going to happen.
Eventually, yeah.
10 years later,
Yeah.
I kept bugging him. And then on his 40th birthday, magic happened.
Yeah, me, Dave Holmes, Ryan, basically us three of the four original members were all in the same room on my birthday downtown. Lyndon was there. Don't even know if they met you.
I met Ryan.
Yeah, and I was like, kind of like, if we're ever going to play a show or write a few songs or whatever, this is our drummer. No one had talked to Isaac in years. It wasn't a great report that we were getting about what was going on with Isaac. So we kind of made our decision that Lyndon should probably be the drummer. And I guess what it originally was like, let's maybe write and record a couple songs and do a few shows, turn into, let's write a full-length record that's signed with Thousand Island Records in Montreal, and let's do this. And within 2 years, we were putting out a new record and going to Japan and going to Europe, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. I think everyone just wanted it. We just didn't know we wanted it.
And Linda, when you actually said like you actually grew up listening to Downway, it must be a surreal moment to actually be a part of the band that you grew up listening to, man. I can only imagine that feeling, being able to be behind that drum kit, seeing the band that you used to listen to on tapes and CDs, and now you're actually drumming for them, bro. That's actually badass.
Yeah, now you get pissed off at me for shit, right? No, exactly. It was pretty surreal. Definitely the first show back, my adrenaline was through the roof, and I was buzzing after that show for months. And just from being a fanboy, standing out in the crowd, drinking a beer, staring at the drummer and listening to the harmonies, and to be, sitting behind the kit with these guys is, I wouldn't say a dream come true.
Oh, he's still starstruck every day. You just tell he's so starstruck.
Yeah, it's fun, and I'm definitely humbled, and I've played in my share of bands in the past, and I don't think I would put up with anybody else the way I put up with these guys. So
he does put up with us.
Well, at least you got a loyal drummer. You don't have to worry about him not showing up for band practice, because he's starstruck. Two, he grew up listening to Downway, so it's like a dream come true. So he's always going to be there early. So
hey, man, he's the only one here. The other guys had hockey practice, and the other one owns a physiotherapy clinic, and he can't just walk out of it until it's closed, which I think is at 8 or 9. So their apologies for not being here. They want to, but
honestly, I completely understand. We all got lives, especially when I inquired about this interview on a Monday night. So I mean, it's Monday. People have to work, right? So I completely get it.
Yeah, I've got a 9 to 5 in downtown Calgary. So and trust me, he texted me this morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. He's like, "Remember, you got that interview tonight?" And I was like, "Fuck, right? Okay, thanks for reminding me. Can you please join me, because no one else could do it." So. Loyal drummer, there he is.
Here we are.
I mean, that your loyal drummer is actually more on it than I was, because I normally have my calendar alarm set for 11 to do promo and whatnot. So he remembered 8 o'clock. I don't have my alarm set till 11 for promo. So, damn.
You guys are on it.
Yeah.
But also as well, because I know you said that you actually signed to Thousand Islands Records, is actually based out of Montreal, Quebec. I was wondering, how did you guys actually get connected with Thousand Islands? Did you reach out to them, or did they actually come to you guys?
No, it was totally me reaching out to them, because I was so used to, in that 14 years, we were used to being on a record label. Like, we went from Hourglass, then we were on 206 Records out of Seattle, and then our last few records was on Sessions out of Santa Cruz, California. So we were kind of used to having that support from a record label. And obviously times had changed quite a bit. Steve Rawls worked for my company downtown, so we saw each other on a daily basis. In fact, we shared an office. And then just kind of one day, I don't know, just cruising around the internet, and was like, "Have you ever heard of Thousand Island Records?" And at the time, I think he had maybe heard of them, but didn't know much about them, which is crazy now because he's so involved with that, with the label, on a friendship level. But I think what had happened is I messaged Bruno and Cynthia and said, "Hey, we're a punk band from back in the day, blah blah blah." They got back to me, said, "Yeah, kind of have an idea of who you are, but definitely didn't know much about us." And then I met them. They were coming to Calgary to come do something, visit friends. And Steve and I went and picked them up at the airport and took them for lunch at the mall, that mall way up north, Balzac or whatever, it's Cross Iron Mills or whatever. And then basically left it as, hey, when you guys do some demos for the new record, send it to us. And Linda and I were working hard on demos in my basement. And sent it to them, and they said, "Yeah, this sounds cool. Like we'll put it out." And they were so easy to deal with and so laid back and
the nicest people.
They're the nicest people, yeah. And they had no feedback besides these are my 3 favorite songs. They didn't give a shit what we did with artwork and nothing. They don't get involved in any of that stuff. At least they didn't with us. And they put it out when we asked them to put it out. They put it out properly. They advertised it for it. They lined us up a bunch of publicity for interviews and things like that. And I think they did a really good job. And, the plan as it sits right now as we head into the writing process for making new music is, I'm thinking Thousand Island and us, we'll probably do something together again.
I'd say, yeah.
And speaking of that album that they actually put out with the artwork they didn't care about and just all the publicity and everything they did for this record, it was May 1st of 2019, which was your guys' first album in 17 years titled Last Chance for More Regrets. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about the story behind this amazing album. And of course, where can we actually buy or stream it today?
Well, I'll answer it in order. As far as the concept for the record, there was no concept for the record besides the title. Last Chance for More Regrets is kind of a spin wordplay pun. If you have it on, we get one more chance to do this.
It's a line of one of the songs as well.
Yeah. But conceptually, it was just, we just kind of wrote a bunch of songs and decided which ones were the best ones to put on the record. And then our album artwork had a bunch of little mini Easter egg throwbacks in the artwork from our previous records. Like if you see the Jeep on the first record, if you look on the cover of the other record, out in the field is that Jeep on fire. Little things like that. As far as, sorry, what's the second half of the question?
Where can you buy it?
Yeah, well, you can buy it you can stream it anywhere, Spotify or Apple Music. You can buy it at Sunrise Records.
Do they have Sunrise Records out east?
I think they do. They do have some. Yeah, I know in Ottawa we have, I want to say 3. There's 3 malls here, and I believe there's 3 Sunrises in each one of the malls.
Besides streaming it, that would be like a Thousand Island Records question. It's like, where do you buy this? Because they deal with the distribution of it, right?
Yeah. It's in every Sunrise Records in Calgary that I know of. And
yeah, I think in other places too. I remember when West Sunrise originally ordered a bunch of them when in the first year it came out.
Right.
So what's left out there, I don't know. I think we only pressed 500 vinyl and maybe similar amount of CDs because it gets streamed a couple 100,000 times, right? Like that's kind of where people get their music now is I'm not telling you something you don't know.
Yeah.
And I know on our end, all the vinyl that we sold at shows is long gone. We've been sold out of that record for a year.
We have 5 CDs left.
Yeah. They're in my cabinet right there.
I'm a CD guy, though. I like a hard copy on CD. So bands out there.
Same here.
CDs, please.
Do you have the new one on CD?
I do not. I've been streaming the living shit out of it, though, but I do not have the actual copy on CD.
Yeah, I can see some right there. I'll throw it in with this one. I'll send you 2 of them tomorrow.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. I got to say, I definitely love streaming them, but just having the CD to put in your car or anything like that is definitely a lot better than streaming. I don't know. I find it's just like being able to look at the booklet, open it up, and You know, it's that new CD smell. I know Lyndon knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm like that with vinyl. Like I collect vinyl. I have about 700 records, which is, a medium-sized collection for people, I would say. But certainly people have much larger. But yeah, I'm all about cracking a new record, pulling it out. Like I want it to be stiff, coming out of the first sleeve. Like that's my brand new CD vibe is vinyl for sure.
And even with the streaming, you don't even get to read the credits almost. Cause I mean, you can have like a little bit of information, like who distributed it. You know what I mean? Like maybe the band's members' names, maybe if they put that there, but it's not the same, man, clicking a button than actually being able to hold the case. And as you're vibing, rocking out to the record, you can look at the case and go, fuck yeah, you know?
Oh,
Exactly.
it's totally true. I mean, I would read every credit and every thank you list and see how many people I knew on that list. And if we were on it, why weren't we on that? We toured these guys for months. I'm half kidding, but yeah, you're right. There's a lot more to look at, listening to a CD for sure than there's, let's be honest. I'm no different than anyone else. Like if I don't know a band, I'll give a song 45 seconds. And it's like, if I don't like the first 45 seconds of that one song, probably not going to listen to your band. That's how accessible, easy it is. Whereas you buy CD, probably going to listen, at least give this band like the whole record, give them that chance. Where now it's just like, nah, I don't love the first 45 seconds. I don't like this band. Boom, on to the next one, because there's a million to choose from. Yeah. And that's a good and bad thing. It's a good way to find new bands, but it's not a good way to maybe sink your teeth into something that you actually might have totally loved.
You miss a lot too.
Yeah.
I definitely agree, because I mean, I always say no matter what album it is, no matter who you're listening to, it could be your favorite band of all time, there's always at least one song that you skip. You could love that song, but you could be like, I love track 10 a lot more than 9, so you're going to skip 9 to get to 10. So if you actually come across that one song that's track 1 and you only give 45 seconds and you don't like it, and you throw that band out the window, I mean, track 2 could be killer and you don't even know it.
You know what? My deal always was, I'd get a new CD and immediately go to track 2. Because I always knew, at least with Downway, you always have like a certain vibe on a first song, but it's not necessarily like summarizing what this record's going to be. Track 2, I was always like, if your track 2 is weak, this album's likely weak. And I hold strong on that opinion. I go to track 2 so much, even when I'm streaming on a new record, and listen to track 2 before I listen to track 1. I feel like track 2 tells the story of where that record's going.
Interesting.
Yeah.
My thing.
I never took it like that, but I'm definitely going to try that method next time. I never actually thought about it like that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and agree with me or not, but it's been a good vetting pattern for me.
Mine is just if I don't like the singer's voice right away, then I'm probably not going to like most of the songs.
I mean, that's justifiable, man. I mean, because obviously the singing is like one of the biggest parts of a band, right? I mean, unless you're listening to classical music, but yeah, I'm good.
It's like I've got a big problem with Rush because they're an amazing band, but I can't stand Geddy Lee's voice. Sorry, we just lost half our fan base listening right now. But,
hey, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, man. I mean, I know this obviously Rush isn't punk rock, and I know the band I'm about to mention isn't punk rock, but I know all the people that are in there about 50s and up are probably going to are going to come with the pitchforks and the fire outside my door. But it's Bon Jovi, man. I cannot stand that man's voice. He sounds whiny. I can't do it.
Hey, exactly. Bon Jovi and Geddy Lee should if they started a supergroup together, you and I would not listen to them.
Not at all. No, I would honestly probably look at the record, pick it up at the store, and just be like, ew.
Yeah, that'd be right.
But I got to ask, guys, obviously, when you guys came back after these 17 years of this and with this amazing album, you guys honestly did not miss a beat. You guys literally went full force, like Japan, Thousand Islands Records deal, the album. What is next for Downway? Because I do know you said you're kind of in the process or thinking about in the process of writing new songs. What is next for Downway? Like, is there anything we happen to miss? Anything you guys do still want to touch on, talk about, or promote what we got you here live on the airwaves?
Well, I mean, last week we met with a documentarian that wants to do a short film let's say 20 to 30 minute documentary on Downway. So we like the sound of doing that because we do have a bunch of old footage, and essentially what the premise of this documentary is us writing and recording, which could very likely be our last record, and then getting ready to tour, the last few tours that we're going to do, whether, we be local or internationally, probably internationally. So that's kind of the premise of this, is we're going to do this documentary about writing a new record, which could, very likely be our last.
Also juggling being dads and
Right.
our busy lives and trying to, be in a band and do all the stuff is tough. There's 9 kids between the 4 of us. So, that's always a big kind of showstopper sort of thing.
Yeah, it's been, all of our kids are kind of at that age where they're like heavily into sports. Like Ryan, our guitar player, is the coach of his hockey team, his son's hockey team, hence he's not here right now. It's been kind of a tough couple of years for us to have the time on a weekly basis to get together and write new music and do demos. We do demos right behind us, like right here. This is my little basement studio where we write and record stuff. So we have kicked off the process and do have 1 or 2 songs written and demoed. And I would say that the plan right now is to have something out for later this year, and then do some touring. Like, when I say real touring, by late this year, like Japan or Europe again next summer. By next summer, I mean 2026 summer. Because I think any time that we have for the band this year is going to be writing and recording this record. Our last record took 45 days to record, and we recorded it with Casey from Belvedere at Echo Base Studios here in Calgary. That's his studio. So it takes some time because you're you're busy with kids. Do you have kids?
Me, no, I do not know. Not that I know of, but I'm pretty sure I don't.
I was waiting for the head nod to come while I'm doing this, and I'm not getting it. I'm like, I don't think he's got kids.
No, not that I know of. I mean, I had a pretty wild early days, but so far nothing. So that's good.
Be careful, 23andMe, man. It's bitten a few people I know.
Watch and see. I jinxed it, eh?
Yeah. So anyways, our plan is to write and record, which will, possibly be our last record. But we're gonna go, 2 feet in. Just like we did with Last Chance for More Regrets, and it was so important to put out what we thought was our best record when we did that in 2019. It's easily my favorite record, but that's I can't give it a very objective opinion. But we want to do something that we're proud of, like we were on the last one.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, guys, before we actually part ways here tonight. Obviously, I know how to follow Downway across all social media platforms, but for the people that are just listening that aren't following you guys, how do they go about following Downway all across the board?
Downway Official on Instagram.
Yeah, we're Downway on Facebook. But yeah, Downway Official, we've got about 10,000 people that we're posting to on that.
YouTube, we're all over there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of live videos we had on Much Music back in the day. About 4 or 5 of those are on YouTube as well. So yeah, to answer your question, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and then all your streamers. I mean, you can get everything except for that one tape that I'm impressed that you brought up that I can't even find anywhere, are on Spotify, Amazon, SoundCloud, Apple Music, iTunes. Spotify. So we're not too hard to find, to be perfectly honest. You just got to spell our name right. It's one word.
And with that being said, since you said you can't even find the tape, any of you diehard Downway fans that watch this interview live or see it in a year from now, if you have the tape, rip it and send it to the band, because the band should have their own material as well. So if you have it, don't be greedy, rip it and send it.
We'll send you a little prize pack.
Yeah, you'll definitely get a little merch pack of hoodies and t-shirts and whatever if that happens, because literally no one in this band has that tape.
And I mean, that's why I always say to myself, like, bands, it's crazy when like fans actually have albums and copies of records that the band members don't even actually have. And it kind of blows my mind just always hearing that, because I always feel like the people that work so hard on the music to distribute it, to create it, to make it, I feel like the band members deserve at least to have copies of everything.
Yeah, and I was never like Lyndon, for example, is great. You know, he's been in the band for 8 years. He has so many gig posters of shows that we played, and I've got like 2. So I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy that grabs a gig poster off every you know, I've got some.
See, that's all I get from playing in this band is the gig posters. So I'll take it.
Instead of dollar bills, it's band posters. It's like, here's a stack.
Priceless, right? So
yeah, and then usually I end up just going through someone else's posters and taking it to my office and just photocopying all of them, so I have some. Which I do have. I probably have 100 gig posters of ours throughout the years, and we've got ones that are plaque mounted and framed and all that stuff kind of through our little basement studio. But yeah, I see Ryan's gig posters or yours, and sometimes I'm like, what show is that? Right. Or I'm like, that's a damn good poster. I should have grabbed that one.
But I do got to say, guys, thank you so much for giving not only myself, but the radio station Airways a bit of your time. Lyndon, Dave, again, thank you so much for your time. It was an honor speaking with you guys. I can't wait to hear the record when it is done recording and it is all finished and polished and released. Thank you guys so much again, and hopefully down the line we can make this happen again sometime soon.
Yeah, we'll have something hopefully more exciting to talk about than we've been really non-active for a little bit. But text me your address, and I'll send you a couple of these old CDs that you don't have tomorrow when I go to the office.
I appreciate that. I will send that to you right away when we hop off the air. But again, guys, thank you so much for the interview. Thank you so much for your time, and also thank you in advance for those CDs as well. I don't think my neighbors are going to be thankful, but I am. So
awesome. Well, thank you for making time for us, man. We appreciate it.
Hey, you're most certainly welcome, guys. Have yourself a phenomenal Monday night and a great rest of the week as well.
Take care. Bye, guys.